This week, we take you inside the pages of the new Previews catalog, give you a behind-the-scenes look at Toy Fair, and discuss cancel culture in comic books. It's all happening this week on PREVIEWSworld Weekly.
What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday, it's New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm your other host, Ashton Greenwood.
And Free Comic Book Day is how far away now? You don't have to do exactly to the day.
I just panicked.
He's like, oh God, I don't know. Right. We're
May 2nd.
May 2nd.
So 2 months.
About 2 more months? Okay.
A little over 2 months, yeah.
Put in your calendar. You should have already put in your calendar, but you haven't put in your calendar already.
If you haven't, I'm mad at you, but.
And you don't want Ashton mad at you. So, okay, new month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means new catalog.
Yes.
And we have Dark Knight's Death Metal,
Ooh.
which of course is a sequel to Dark Knight's Metal.
Of course.
And I always have to remind myself whenever I type this that it's Knights with an N, not a K. It always messes with me for some reason. Like I always have to like double
want to
check.
think like Dark Knight, like
right,
Batman.
like Batman, right. But yeah, so follow up, it's Scott Snyder, it's Greg Capullo, everybody loves this series.
Superman is an absolute beast mode.
Yeah, he does, I love it. I love hair metal Superman.
Right.
And also love like rock goddess Wonder Woman too.
Here
like,
for it all.
All this stuff is great.
Right.
So yeah, that's available to pre-order this month. And then on top of that, you want to talk about Firepower a little bit?
Absolutely. So we got Firepower is in the March catalog for May. So it is Robert Kirkman's new story post The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
He also has another new story, Invincible, which is a free comic book day book as well. But Firepower is Image's gold level free comic book day book. So you can get it for free. You can get issue number 1 for free at Free Comic Book Day. And then a few weeks before that in April, there's a prelude you can get.
Right, yeah.
And then also a few weeks after Free Comic Book Day in May, you can purchase issue number 1 if you missed it. And then also issue number 2 will be coming out as well in May.
Right, and the Prelude's like a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, so that's really interesting. So yeah, they're giving you plenty of opportunities to pick up Firepower.
Right.
It actually looks kind of cool. I mean, I like in almost meat-headed type of way. Like the simplicity of the concept is like, you know, this guy goes to a temple, he discovers that there are like people who can like, you know, throw fireballs. And like already I was like, yeah, I'd read that.
Right.
I'm a simple man. I see fireballs, I read it.
in.
There you go. Also, I want to point out, Batman: The Adventures continues. Like we saw like a press release for it last week, and then found out that actually it's one of the books available coming in May, so it's available pre-order right now. It's from the guys who did the animated series back in the '90s, and it's done in that art style. It's a continuation of that series. Yeah, I'm gonna pick that up.
Absolutely.
Like that's a lot of fun. Also. I'm not going to buy this. I'm just going to point this out. But there's a Dracula Castlevania like statue in the catalog right now. It's $600, which is why I'm not buying it.
Damn.
But I love Castlevania. It looks awesome. So hopefully Johnny can throw it up on screen. But it looks awesome regardless.
I'm going to have to look at it after this. I'm interested.
Interesting. So cool things we saw this week.
Yes.
I'm going to let you start off because you had a little something about Sabrina and Riverdale. And apparently a little light controversy around that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So over the weekend on the official, like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Instagram page, they posted a picture of Kiernan Shipka plays Sabrina, KJ Appa, and Casey Cott, who are Archie and Kevin on Riverdale.
Oh, okay.
And they had captioned it, Riverdale is a big, scary place. And then Archie Comics commented with the little like side-eye emoji.
Okay.
And then Sabrina replied back with just like ...
Okay.
So maybe like a hint, nudge at a possible crossover coming. But then there was an explosion in the comments about, don't ruin Sabrina. Because Riverdale is like very, very, very off the rails at this point.
Right, yeah.
So they're afraid that like ridiculousness is going to seep into Sabrina.
Right.
That already sort of is.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, is that kind of like I feel like the angle with these shows is kind of like they go pretty far.
Yeah.
They go well beyond the original concepts of the original comic books. So, yeah, I don't know. You showed me the comments and I couldn't help but laugh because people were like in panic mode.
Yeah, 100%.
They're like, no.
No, we don't want this. We didn't ask for this. Don't do it.
So I don't know. I feel like if they had introduced Sabrina first, as a TV show, and then I know like, you know, this is just a pipe dream type thing, but like they introduced Sabrina first and then Riverdale, maybe that would make a lot more sense to have them converge because you've already introduced the supernatural, crazier elements of the Archie horror universe, whatever you want to call it. But I've only watched like 2 episodes of Sabrina and no Riverdale, so what do I know?
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy, right. I'm gonna get around to it actually. I think the more we talk about this on the show, the more likely I'm gonna actually end up probably watching Riverdale. So
mission accomplished.
Can we talk about Tony Hawk Pro Skater
Yes,
for a second.
I yelled.
No, you brought this to me this past week, and I'm actually kind of amped for this. So there's a documentary coming out. It's actually been filmed. They started filming it. I think it started like they announced it in 2016, and so like the documentary is done. Is making its debut actually this week on the 29th in California at a film festival. I'm hoping it comes to Netflix or maybe even Hulu, but more Netflix because I just like Netflix more.
Yeah.
But like it's about Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and it's actually from one of the producers of the game. On top of that,
Right.
And like I just love this. I loved this game.
The article we saw on Facebook talked about like it being like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, 2, and 3 being the games that kind of defined a generation.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's an accurate way of describing that. You know, everybody has an experience with this game.
Yeah. No, I think I coming up, like I think I told you this off camera, of course, but I used to play the game on PlayStation. I played 3 on PlayStation. That was my first interaction with the game, and I got hooked. And then I would like when I had to go to school, I would pause it, come back, unpause it, and play the rest of the game because I didn't want to lose my points on doing ollies. I swore I was a skateboarding expert just because of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So, and then you add like Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Marvel characters and all this other unlockable content.
Spider-Man.
I was in fat kid heaven. I was all about it. So yeah. Anyway. It's time for What's at Comic Shops. So a bunch of cool stuff came out this week, and now we're going to show you some of that stuff and also give you some of our picks. Check it out.
So as always, tons of fantastic comics coming out this week. We won't be able to talk about them all, but you can see the full list at PREVIEWSworld.com/new releases. We're just going to pick out a few of our faves as always. So Troy, start us off.
Infinity 8, Volume 6. It's from Magnetic Press. I've been following this book since the first issue dropped. It's French. It's slightly offensive depending on who you ask.
Well, it's French.
But of course, Magnetic Press translated this to English, and so it's interesting because it's about a downed space cruiser, and the reason that the space cruiser is down is kind of slowly revealed. But it has like pretty much every assortment of character you could imagine, passengers and tourists, spies, which is also a big part of this. On top of that, they have a captain that's like this giant worm creature that works inside a fishbowl in front of the ship itself, and you're finding out why the cruiser was stopped in the middle of space, and it turns out that they have been kind of like they've encountered a bunch of debris that's like a part of a mausoleum. And they don't understand why it's in the middle of space, but maybe a planet exploded or something like that. My theory, because time travel does factor into this, is that they're encountering the ship in the future. That's my theory. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Right. That's my theory right now. But the series has been going on for about I want to say, they kind of number it weird, but the series has been going on for about 4 or 5 volumes now. The last one I read was a fun one about this religious zealot versus this woman who was a real believer, but she was also a spy. Everybody's a spy in this one. There's always female
heroine. Good spy.
Yeah, there's always a female heroine at the base of it. And the one I'm reading right now is about this band manager who's also a spy, but it's just a fun book. And you get to encounter a bunch of different characters in and out. It's like high adventure, science fiction. It's a fun one. So definitely check it out if you get the chance to. Infinity 8. Volume 6.
All right.
Yeah, and actually get Volume 1 because that makes more sense.
That's what I was going to ask. Would you recommend just jumping in or going back?
I mean, you can. I mean, that's a great thing about it because every 3 issues is a new storyline.
Oh, okay.
So literally 3 issues go by, and I'm imagining that this volume contains at least maybe 3 of the 3 different storylines in one. So yeah, you can jump in at any point, but also pick up Volume 1 because it's interesting. So yeah, Infinity 8. What are you looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to the Star Wars Galactic Explorer's Guide, which is really cool. It's this big hardcover book that kind of functions as like an atlas for the Star Wars galaxy, but it's kind of this halfway point between being a guide and almost like some sort of vacation brochure for all of these different.
It's kind of perfect though.
Right. Because they have these cool Art Deco posters for different places in the galaxy for Tatooine and Stormtroopers and all of these different things that exist in the Star Wars universe. And so it's a book plus an app. So there's also this augmented reality part of it where you can kind of interact with it in a digital way. And it includes all people of interest from each planet. So of course Rey from Jakku and Luke and Anakin from Tatooine and all of that.
Interchangeable, but sure. Sorry.
Anakin and Luke?
No, Tatooine and Jakku.
I know, right? Yeah. Sand planets. It's fine.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just want to throw some Star Wars shade. I'm sorry.
I'm convinced, because I'm reading Dune, I'm convinced that Arrakis was inspiration for
I wouldn't
Tatooine.
be surprised about it. Lucas has been very open about his inspirations, and I'm sure that at some point. Oh, no, wait. Dune came out after Star Wars, didn't it? Actually,
64.
64. Okay, so yeah. I might be thinking of the movie. But anyway, yes.
Burned through that book really quick and was like, we need a sand planet of our own.
There you go. Hey, why not?
And then it also, really quick, just to finish it up, has like overview and history of each planet and kind of breaks down like the planet by section. So like, unknown regions, like the core space of it, western reaches, all of that, and whatever is like the most inhabited portion is the section that they focus on.
All right, yeah. That's kind of cool, actually.
It was awesome. I watched like a first look on YouTube. This thing's insane.
Okay, cool. That's actually pretty awesome. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised no one's ever done that before.
Right?
Someone has had to have done that before. But if not, that's a really cool idea. A travel guide for the Star Wars universe. Right? Like, yeah, all that lore, it's like, you can unpack that forever. Big ticket items this week.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about XMen.
Surprise, surprise.
But
slowly becoming the X-Men show.
It's becoming the X-Men show.
The X-Men hour.
But here's the thing, like Giant Size X-Men #1's dropping, and it's a limited series, but it's a series of standalone titles that each kind of focus on different aspects of this existing X-Men universe as we know it right now.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before in the show. The current Jonathan Hickman run of X-Men is very much about world building. He's established a new status quo, and now he's just kind of delving into it. And some people are losing patience with the book because of that. I love that. I think that's really fun. Especially because it's the Marvel Universe and there's so many aspects of it that you can kind of play with. But this particular one focuses on Jean Grey and Emma Frost, whose rivalry is actually one of my favorite things in the X-Men line.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, because Jean was with Scott for a number of years. Right. Scott, probably not the best boyfriend in the world. But then Jean died, perfect example of Scott not being a great boyfriend. And then Scott got with Emma Frost. But interesting,
what a guy.
Right, what a guy. But interestingly enough, he's become a better person with Emma. But during Hickman's run, he's with Jean again. But we're kind of still trying to figure out, okay, what is the dynamic here? Like, are they frenemies? Are they enemies? Clearly the book has them both in the same book, so are they going to be like at each other's throats, or are they going to be like working together?
Right.
There's some indication of some polyamory going on in the X-Men universe too, on top of that. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how they tackle this, how Hickman approaches this. It is Jonathan Hickman who's also doing the story as well. And he's going to be doing all of the subsequent issues as well. So
does it tie into his main continuity?
Yeah, in a way, I think, I can't really say just yet, but like it sounds like if he's building out the world, that these are details that you're going to get details about this book that are going to be necessary to read his X-Men book. Okay. So, and I'm not a big one of those people who's like, oh, you got to read every single X-Men book. I don't read every single X-Men book. I read X-Men, and I'm going to read this. Right. And then I read X-Men Fantastic Four, and that's it. So, like, yeah, I just want to see the architect of this particular run of X-Men kind of build things out. So, yeah, Giant Size X-Men #1. So, did you go to Toy Fair?
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't go to Toy Fair either. Who went to Toy Fair?
I did.
Johnny. Boo.
So Toy Fair 2020 was this.
Thumbs down.
Yeah, thumbs down to you, John.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Actually,
it was a big thumbs up for me.
Okay,
whatever.
Right.
Did you see the Archie Funko Pops?
I did.
Oh, nice. Okay. Look, I know for some of the people here, like it's a slog because it's like nonstop. Right. They're working. I went like 2 years back to back in a row. Yeah. And I thought it was so much fun.
It's probably super cool.
Right. And
Archie debuted their new Funko Pops there.
Okay. Yeah. And this is what, Riverdale?
No, it's based off of the comic characters, like their original look in the comic books. Oh, okay. First time Archie's ever made Funkos based off the comic design.
So Jughead, Archie, like all the classic. Okay, that's
Jughead's
cool.
got his crown, his ridiculous nose, and a burger.
That's perfect. That's quintessential Jughead.
Exactly.
So Toy Fair in New York was this weekend, and we didn't get to go. But Johnny went, and Johnny went with Kyle and Natasha. And so here's a little sample of what's at Toy Fair in New York for those of you who missed it. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about it. How about that? Yeah. Check it out. And that was just a sample of what you could have seen at Toy Fair 2020 if you had gone, which you're not allowed to go apparently, neither are we. Specifically, that was the Diamond Select Toys booth.
Right.
So some of the stuff from our parent company, of course. But you can get more. Head on over to PREVIEWSworld.com/toyfair because there are going to be more videos. Actually, there's going to be a video featuring Natasha, of course. And on top of that, some more videos of like specific vendors. Like, you know, actually, I won't promise anything because I don't know everybody they looked at. I know DC Collectibles is one of them.
Ooh, they have cool stuff.
But speaking
And
of...
Funko.
And Funko, of course.
Shout out to Funko.
How could you forget Funko?
Right.
But speaking of Diamond Select Toys, because you guys saw a bunch of DST stuff, what is the prize this week?
We're giving away a Red Hulk.
All right.
Guess I guess a PVC.
Yeah, definitely PVC.
Love their PVCs. So to win the Red Hulk, comment below wherever you're watching, Facebook or YouTube, and tell us what video game documentary Troy and I are super excited for. We told you at the top of the show, so if you need to, you might want to go back and watch through again. And you'll have until next Wednesday to throw your hat in the ring, and we'll pick a winner at random.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of winners, we have one from last week, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Last week, we asked you to tell us the best and worst comic book to video game adaptations. And our winner was Fun Cooker 1, who said Spider-Man PS4.
It was the best.
Was the best.
Right, let's clarify.
Sorry. Yeah.
We don't want people coming after us.
Carrie will burst the door and be like, well, actually.
Right, yeah. So typically, okay, so the next segment is going to be We've Got Issues, right?
Yes.
Which I'm starting to feel is my favorite because we get to rant.
Love it. Likewise.
Right. But typically for our last segment of the show, we have to like search for a topic.
Right.
But not this week.
This one was handed to us on a silver platter.
Actually, there was a plethora of topics, but I think interestingly enough, they all kind of converge.
Yeah.
So here we go. We've got issues.
I disagree.
So every year, there's an event called Comics Pro. It's held annually, usually in different places, I think. I don't think it's ever held in the same place.
Right.
But the way it's described is a nonprofit organization, but also a trade association for comic book retailers.
Okay.
And so publishers go there, of course, comic shop owners go there, and they have like kind of like a powwow every year about the state of the industry, like future initiatives, et cetera, et cetera. Dynamite's head honcho, Nick Barucci, spoke on cancel culture specifically and how it affects the industry at large.
Yeah.
And I thought that like some of the stuff he had to say was pretty interesting. Like I think that, and we'll get into what he said exactly, but I think that ultimately he said a lot of things that a lot of people are afraid to say out loud. But I can tell you personally, I've heard a lot of people say in private. So it was actually really interesting to have him actually say it like, you know, publicly. And not a lot of people cover this, but I thought it was really important. But I want to start things off by asking you specifically, you know, for the table, right? But also for the people at home. How do you define cancel culture?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So cancel culture is basically a thought process in which whenever a person, an individual, an organization does or says something that you disagree with, that maybe reflects them in a bad light or is somehow not in line with how we feel as a society, we're over them.
Right.
And
yeah.
we're done, we're canceling them, we don't talk about them, and their contributions aren't important anymore. And there's this, lately there has been this nasty side effect of cancel culture in which it retroactively gets rid of your past successes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And it's a problem across the board, from like specifically the comic book community to like nerd culture at large to like pop culture in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like, you know, I want to preface this by saying like, there are some people that deserve to be canceled. Like, I understand that, you know.
Mark Kelly.
Right, yes, exactly. I mean, there's a laundry list of people that deserve to get canceled. That said, I think for me personally, and I totally agree with your definition of that, I think that nails it on the head. I would also add criticism that's not constructive.
Yes.
And also, it also has an element of lack of empathy.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, a lack of compassion, like that everyone is Satan if they don't believe this, you know, and there's only two sides of the story. So, like, there's only like good or evil, like basically.
There's no gray area in cancel
no gray
culture.
area. So Nick Barucci, what he said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but like he said, the overwhelming majority of retailers are communicative and are up for discussions. At times, there's a retail minority that are loud and the equivalent to keyboard cops. And they may not realize it, but they border on bullying. They prefer cancel culture over discussion and understanding and mutual cooperation, which I think actually speaks to exactly what you said. Yeah. And I think that like comics for the last few years have been just mired in like this overwhelming ugliness. You know what I mean? Like where it's just, you know, people are at each other's throats, and it's one of those things where it's important to realize, like we said before, that not everyone is a villain.
Right.
And we think of things in very binary terms. You know what I mean?
Especially with comic books, because that is your structure, hero, villain.
Exactly. And the other thing Barucci said, that I'm just going to quote real quick, that I thought was also really important is he was talking a lot about like the importance of allowing publishers to experiment,
Right.
allowing publishers to be creative, and not trying to kill something literally like before it's born. Like, you know what I mean? Like letting there be room for experimentation and for new initiatives and not just destroying something outright. And so what he says here is, for the most part, from both the retailer, publisher, and fan perspectives, this kind of cancel culture, as well as resistance to change, stifles experimentation and growth. And he lists a bunch of like examples, mostly Marvel here. But he says like Marvel's Hero Reborn would not have happened, which would not have led to Marvel Knights, which would not have allowed to Joe Quesada's to become Marvel Editor-in-Chief, which would not have led to the Ultimate line, Marvel Max, et cetera, which are all things I love.
Right.
And it brought me to something that, gonna dance around this a little bit, but it brought me to something that also happened this week, which is Dan Didio exiting DC Comics. And I saw a lot of people kind of, applauding his exit, listing, literally trying to cancel him, like, know, for things that I would say they perceive he was responsible for directly. But you have to understand that organizations like these are big, they're behemoths. And they answer to larger behemoths, like, you know what I mean? And like nothing, no ship is just going to turn abruptly. Like, it takes a bunch of people to make that decision. And Joe Quesada this week, in the heat of all this, oddly enough, speaking of Joe Quesada, made a comment which was like, while the world of comics likes to look at things in terms of heroes and villains, that's far from reality. I've known Dan Didio years before he was at DC. And like he was kind of backing Dan Didio. Like, and these guys come from literally two different houses. Like, it's Marvel and DC, but there's the editor-in-chief of Marvel complimenting the publisher of DC Comics for the most part. And he got into it more. This is like part of a thread, of course.
Right.
But yeah, I see some creators that were like, cheering, and I feel like this is like an extension of the cancel culture thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like they want to anchor one bad example, and who doesn't have bad days, right? You know what I mean? One bad example to the entirety of someone's career, Right. And it's so prevalent in comics that it really bugs me. So yeah, at the end of the day, I applaud Nick Barucci for saying what he said. Like, I think that like ultimately it's something that needed to be said publicly.
Absolutely. And I think in comics, but also, again, you could apply it to pop culture at large, there's a very short memory. And especially with Didio, like it's easy to be upset about, 5G or Generation Zero, whatever you want to call it, and dislike that now.
Before it's even coming out, right.
And be excited that he got kicked out because you feel he had a hand in that. But you have to remember, I'm sure he's also had a hand in some sort of line at DC that you love.
Right, exactly.
So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly. I mean, I looked this up today because he's been with the company since I want to say 2002. And in that time, we've had All-Star Superman, which everybody loves.
Right.
Why the Last Man? I mean, I saw Scott Snyder saying that like they didn't agree on a lot of things, and they constantly had like creative like headbuttings. But Scott Snyder came in under his watch, and Scott Snyder was also complimentary about him. And I see like all these people trying to bring up all this stuff about him in the past and whatnot. And I also saw a laundry list, like a pretty extensive list of creators saying like, no, like we didn't always get along, but he did go to bat for me in a lot of occasions. And I think that's important to remember, you know, especially in comics, but also in pop culture and larger pop culture landscape. So yeah, just because somebody did one bad thing,
you don't get rid of them forever.
Don't have to get rid of them forever. So, yeah, I just wanted to dive into that. I kind of felt like the Nick Barucci thing and the Didio thing kind of like all kind of intersected in an interesting way at the same time.
Right.
So, anyway, how about a little comic shop shout out to close us out?
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right, so this week's comic shop shout out goes to Mr. Rama. He actually shouted out 2 shops.
Oh, yeah.
Memory Lane Comics does a lot for their community, and Fanboy Comics is wonderful to their customers.
Cool.
So if you want to feature your shop, have us feature your shop on the show, find us on social media, tag your shop, and use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS, and we could possibly pick you.
Cool. And actually, I guess we're only going to show Memory Lane on the closing credits, just to be clear. But
oh, sorry.
But thank you for shouting out both of them. And so I guess that's it for this week's show.
Absolutely.
I want to remind people to like, share, and subscribe because that is very important. And above all else, create comic culture, guys, because I think...
Please don't cancel it.
Yeah, don't cancel. I think at the end of the day, your heroes and villains don't want you to be narcissistic and spiteful, and that's not you're not internalizing the stories when you do stuff like that. So, I am Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm Ashton Greenwood,
and we'll see you guys at the Spinner Rack.
Previews World, Carrie from Gemstone Publishing here with your Overstreet Most Valuable Comic of the Week. This year, we're celebrating our golden anniversary with the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide number 50. A lot has happened in comics since Overstreet number 1 debuted in 1970, so let's check out this week's Overstreet MVC. Fantastic Four number 1. It's known for the first appearance and origin story of the first family of Marvel Comics, the Fantastic Four. This issue saw the team receive their powers from cosmic rays and followed them as they took on the dangerous and mysterious Mole Man. But did you know Johnny Storm is actually the second Human Torch to appear in comics? The first one was Jim Hammond, who carried the title starting in 1939's Marvel Comics number 1. The original Human Torch was a leading character for Timely Comics, Marvel's predecessor, alongside the likes of Captain America and Namor the Submariner. Thanks for joining us for this week's Overstreet Most Valuable Comic selection. You can learn more about comic pricing history in the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide number 1 Facsimile edition, available for pre-order right now in the February edition of Previews and releasing this April. And don't forget that Overstreet number 50 hits stores this July. We'll be back next week with a new MVC for your collection.
Thanks for watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.